In what is probably one of the more underreported events that's been going on in the world right now is in the nation of Uganda. Perhaps you have read, depending on the news sources you read, that there is a bill in front of their legislature that would make it illegal to be homosexual, punishable by prison and or death. What many people don't know is that there's also a part of that bill that says if you aid, give comfort to, or support someone who is homosexual, you can be imprisoned and or put to death. What has been totally unreported is that this morning, or I think there's maybe about a 10 or 12 hour difference, so I'm not sure which way that goes, but on Valentine's Day, there is a convention of people who are alarmed by this bill and who are against the bill, who are gathering together in the capital of Uganda to try to figure out what they can do. And there are two Unitarian Universalist colleagues who have made the trip there to bear witness to what is going on. Pretty risky stuff. I wonder if they made it into the country. Lately, I've been spending a lot of time. In November, I was in Canada. In December, I was in Mexico. And you know as well as I do, one of the first things they ask you when you enter a country is, why are you here? What are you doing? And I'm wondering if they even made it in. If they'll make it out. Several weeks ago, I used that line from Krista Tippett. How often we live in a society and a world that denies the complexities of love. Certainly what's going on in Uganda as well as worldwide in so many different ways, at so many different levels, is this inability to recognize the complexities of love. And so it is this morning that we gather and we are talking about standing on the side of love, and then in parentheses we also say, and justice. And I want to say a few words about justice. It was Martin Luther King Jr. who essentially called congregations to task, all congregations, all religious groups, when he said, any religion that professes to be concerned about all souls and is not concerned about the social conditions that cripple them is a spiritually dead religion awaiting burial. Let me repeat that. Any religion that professes to be concerned about all souls and is not concerned about the social conditions that cripple them is a spiritually dead religion awaiting burial. In other words, justice means standing on the side of love, because justice is love with legs. Justice is love with legs. When justice is for all souls and not just a few souls, they are all invited. We all are invited and walk in the circle of love. This is what justice means. Justice means affirming and promoting the inherent worth and dignity of every person by expanding the circle of love, not shrinking it. Justice means being a headlight and not a taillight. Being a headlight and focusing the light of love on injustice. Justice means all souls, not some souls, are protected by laws that guarantee equal rights with dignity, respect, and compassion. To live justice always means to be more inclusive, not exclusive. Exclusion, I believe, is always a sign of injustice. In fact, as we have built up to this Sunday, and I've been thinking about what I wanted to share with you, and thinking about this notion that exclusion is always a sign of justice, of injustice. Exclusion is always a sign of injustice. I have tried over and over to think of cases where that would be the exception. where there would be an exception, of where exclusion could be called justice. And frankly, I can't think of any. It doesn't make it okay if a majority of people, through petition or through their legislature, say it's all right to deny people justice. It doesn't make it okay if the highest court in your state or the land says that the circle of justice and love has to be shrunk. It doesn't make it okay if all the people agree that what we needed to do is deny a certain group of people justice and equal rights. History is very clear about this. When so-called justice excludes, denigrates, or marginalizes, inevitably, and it may take time, but it happens, the individuals who use that perversion of justice are eventually labeled as being on the wrong side of history. And they will be judged by later generations who look back at them and say, what were they thinking? Were they thinking? What was wrong with those people? They may turn to their parents and say, were you in favor of this? Or their grandparents or their great-grandparents and say, were you a part of this perversion? What were you thinking? Which is why I remain confident, and I've said it over and over, that in a year, in a generation or two, I wish it were a year or two, in a generation or two, maybe even in my lifetime, I am convinced that it will be legal in this state for two people of the same gender to be married. There's just no doubt in my mind. And at some point, like an episode out of Star Trek, our children, our great-grandchildren will look back and maybe they'll come to you and say, what were you thinking? Because justice and love never marginalize. Exclusionary justice is an oxymoron. Today, let's reimagine Valentine's Day. While we are gathered here, I know that we wish each other love and happiness. And as we hear songs and words of love and justice, let's also remember that most everyone may enjoy those rights, but not everyone does. Not everyone enjoys those opportunities because in the state of Maryland, fairness is denied. And we can ask, as Langston Hughes asked, and what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? No, he concludes, eventually it explodes. Eventually it explodes. And that's what I would like to see this morning, is an explosion of these red cards. I'd like to see them all over the state capitol next week as John and others deliver them to our delegates and to our senators. And so I urge you to fill out these cards and have them sent to your legislators, and maybe not even to your legislators, but all the legislators. Let's remind them that all Marylanders must enjoy the blessings and gifts of what it means to be a human being, which includes dignity, equity, compassion, and respect. On this Valentine's Day, let us stand on the side of love and justice and shout out. Let us sing out that we are a spirit-filled, gentle, compassionate, yet angry people who are singing not only for our own lives, but for the lives of many, many others. Let us join in singing this song together, the lyrics